Welcome to Miami, Florida.
The Bud Light U.S. Triathlon Series was born in San Diego on June 12, 1982. At the front of the pack was Dave Scott. Still smarting from his loss to Scott Tinley at the Bud Light Ironman 4 months before, Scott had declared the night before the San Diego race, "This is war." Behind him that day were Tinley and Scott Molina, meeting each other for the first time. And in the back of this group, a lean, muscular lifeguard from Del Mar, California by the name of Mark Allen. It was Allen's very first triathlon. They became known as the Big Four, and for the next 5 years they ruled the sport. Scott, known as the Man, 6-time winner of the Bud Light Ironman.
What a great way to start the Bud Light United
Tinley,
States
ST, the most versatile athlete the sport has ever seen.
Bud Light United States
Allen, the Grip, short for the grip of death. The man who could take his mind and body beyond pain. And Scott Molina, the Terminator, king of the Bud Light USTS. Through the 1986 season, Molina was the only man to hold the Bud Light USTS national title. But in 1987, a young man from Arcata, California named Mike Pigg ended the reign of the Big Four. Pigg crushed Molina and Tinley in the Bud Light USTS season opener in Miami and crushed everyone else in the weeks to come. Riding his bike as no triathlete had ever ridden, Pigg cut a swath through the sport. Only Mark Allen stood in his way, beating Pigg in 3 series events before the tables turned when it counted the most. At the Bud Light USTS National Championship in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, Mike Pigg took the race away from Mark Allen and took the series crown from Scott Molina and placed it on his own head. Yet not even Mike Pigg's accomplishments could compare to what Kirsten Hansen, 5'3" 102-pound bundle of dynamite from Denver, was doing to the women's field. There had never been a female version of the Big Four. Winners came and went. Few of them stayed on top for very long, but Hansen broke the mold. Her first series win came in Phoenix in 1986 against defending Bud Light Ironman champ Joanne Ernst. From that day on, she was a star.
And the tradition continues for the 7th straight year, the 1988 season opener in Miami. Well, Mike Plant, we've seen it all in 6 years of history in the Bud Light U.S. Triathlon Series. Here we are ready to start the 1988 season in normally sunny, balmy Miami, Florida, and we got rain and a little bit of wind. But even though this is the first event of the 1988 Bud Light U.S. Triathlon Series, it's really not the first event of the triathlon season.
Well, that's right, Carl. We started out on April 10th at the America's Paradise Triathlon, a long race where Mike Pigg and Kirsten Hansen were absolutely dominant. But last week in Tampa Bay, Kirsten was beaten by 6 minutes by a woman who's racing today, Lisa Lighty, and Mike Pigg barely won. 6-second victory over Tom Huggins, who's also racing today. Mike Pigg has got to be the favorite, no doubt about it. But Harold Robbins, who was second last year on the Coke Grand Prix, he'll be in there, as well as Rookie of the Year last year, Brooks Clark. And you got to look at this guy Huggins, 6 seconds behind Pigg last week. He's got to be tough.
And even though Kirsten Hansen won't race today, the women's field is awfully tough.
Well, it really is. Jan Ripple, again, second last year at the National Championships. And then you got returning Ironman champion from 1986, Paula Newby-Fraser. And Lisa Lighty, once again, 6 minutes over Kirsten Hansen last week.
A rainy day in Miami, Florida. We'll be right back for the season opener of the 1988 Bud Light U.S. Triathlon Series.
The beautiful setting here in Miami. If you were a triathlon fan and you had a boat, and a lot of people in Miami have boats, you'd be able to watch the entire race right from here in Biscayne Bay. Consumers start in Bicentennial Park behind you. The cyclists ride over Rickenbacker Causeway toward Key Biscayne. The runners run over MacArthur Causeway out toward Miami Beach. This is going to be the scene of an awful lot of activity. Just before the race starts, the cruise ships will be turning around here in Biscayne Bay. Then the race happens, and at 9 o'clock, the U.S. Coast Guard training ship Eagle takes off and heads out to sea. It's a wonderful race. First event, a 1.5-kilometer swim right here in Biscayne Bay. So we take a quick 10-minute boat ride across Biscayne Bay, and we come to what passes for a hill on Miami Bud Light USTS course. Behind us here is Rickenbacker Causeway. The cyclists will go over the causeway, head out toward Key Biscayne, do a little side trip around Virginia Key, and then come on back across the causeway. And hill actually most of the cyclists will enjoy because it gives them a chance to get up off their seats, loosen their legs up a little bit, and we might see some pretty fast, tough action as some of the pros try to make a break either going up or coming down the other side. the guts of the race, the run. Behind me, the MacArthur Causeway. The runners go out, and the runners come back. You can see forever. You can't hide out there. You know who's in front, and you know who's behind, and all of this natural beauty just go unnoticed.
Mike Planner was a great
So much for natural beauty.
I think when everybody looked
Race day dawns rainy and cold. The race director's nightmare. As if the care and feeding of 1,000 triathletes is not tough enough as it is. And on opening day, no less.
In late September. Hello everyone, I'm John Moyle on camera. I'm your host for this.
But the bottom line is that triathlon is an all-weather sport. If you're looking for something where you can keep your hair nice,
top pros are here,
try
some top
bowling.
amateurs, and among the top pros, Scott Molina.
The people that haven't biked in the wet weather around here, especially in Biscayne, it's very, very simple and dangerous. So I'm just going to take it nice and easy.
One advantage, at least, is that the wet weather may have helped diffuse some of the pre-race jitters. But there's no escaping them now. As the start approaches, none of the athletes to whom triathlon has become a livelihood can know what successes and what failures the new season will bring. If 1987 proved anything, it was that what had been perceived as triathlon tradition was simply old news.
So it should be very interesting to watch and see what Joy Hansen does today.
Mike Pigg, the defending Bud Light USTS national champion, wearing the red cap that marks him as the leader in the Coke Grand Prix, has his work cut out for him in Miami, and he knows it. Last year he was a giant killer. This year he's a target. And what's it like for Lisa Lighty, standing there on the very edge of fame? Is she the newest superstar in the sport, or just another pretty face in the triathlon crowd? The pro men are off after a customary triathlon false start. They fight for position and turn beneath the stir of the eagle and head south. Note that most of them are wearing wetsuits. That's not for warmth. The water temperature in Biscayne Bay is a comfortable 75 degrees, but rather for buoyancy and speed. The suits are controversial. They give the weaker swimmers much more of an advantage than the stronger ones. But the Triathlon Federation has not ruled firmly against their use in warm water. So even the fastest swimmers must use them to keep up.
Let's introduce our women's field.
Because of the wetsuits and the refined technique of drafting and the steadily increasing depth of talent in the sport as a whole, the swim has become less and less of a decisive event. Early in the race, Rob Mackel, swimming without a wetsuit, pushes hard and tries to open a gap between himself and the rest of the field. A year ago, it would have worked. This time, predictably, the plan fails. All Mackel ends up doing is blazing a trail for the men behind. As the field rounds the turn at the south end of the course, Harold Robinson, in the blue wetsuit, slides into the lead. Robinson raced through the 1987 season in the shadow of Mike Pigg. The two men were teammates and good friends, but it was Robinson's dream to beat Pigg at least once. He never got closer than second place. This year, though, he's in the best shape of his life, and his move to the front now signals a new confidence. Pigg's red cap is nowhere in sight.
The professional triathletes are not the only story here today. We've got over 1,000 age group triathletes and 11 of the 18 defending champions from this Miami event 1 year ago. We'll be right back.
5 minutes after the men, the women pros get underway. The women are off. The first of 10 age group waves will follow in 10 minutes. The triathletes are started in waves primarily for safety. Mass starts with 1,000 or more people are spectacular, but they're scary, especially if you're in the middle. Even as it is, it can get pretty rough. For most people, the swim is not the most formidable of the three events, but it's the only time during the race when triathlon can be considered a contact sport.
Mornings are cool and still.
The women, like the men, are framed by the masts and spars of the training ship Eagle. It's a dramatic scene. The early leader among the women is Eni Jones from Gainesville, Florida. That's hardly a surprise. Former All-American at the University of Florida, Jones has been for years the fastest woman in the sport of triathlon, and she guards her position aggressively. After checking the rest of the field behind her, she looks to her left, spots a challenger, and takes up the pace. This is her moment in the spotlight, and she's determined to make the most of it. In the men's field, Harold Robinson still has the lead, but from the looks of things, he's not really pressing the pace at all. His stroke is smooth and powerful, and he's well in control. If Robinson had a problem last year, it was not being able to win the big ones. He could be saving some energy here, perhaps, by following another swimmer, but simply being in first place is important to him psychologically. He needs to convince himself that he belongs at the front.
Really, from volunteers getting on paddleboards, heading out onto the swim course, they'll be positioned all along the course.
It's very exciting.
The swimmers reach the rim and head toward their bikes. Robinson is first, followed closely by several men, including 21-year-old Brooks Clark, last year's Triathlon Rookie of the Year, and interestingly, Tom Huggins, the man who almost stole the race from Mike Tig last week in Tampa Bay. It's beginning to look as if Huggins is for real. The question is Robinson? Triathlon is composed of 3 events with which most people are familiar: the swimming, the biking, and the running. There is a 4th event, however, the transitions. You can gain a lot of time or lose a lot of time going from one event to the next, and the wetsuits have complicated the issue. On this particular day, with the transition area located on the grass infield at Bicentennial Park, the rain has made things even tougher. 45 seconds behind the leaders, Mike Tig hits the transition area and struggles out of his wetsuit. He's the reason, of course, why everyone in front of him was hurrying. If last year's script holds true today, Tig will explode out of the transition area and have the lead within 5 miles. But after his narrow, come-from-behind win last week, there is a question mark where there once was a certainty. And there are expectations now of Tig that last year sat on the shoulders of guys like Scott Molina and Scott Tinley. Being the star is nice, but it carries a price. Todd Jacobs, number 23, a triathlete on his way up, is part of another story we'll hear more about later. Todd is on his bike and heads out, well behind Mike Tig.
Action continues from Miami in just a moment. Stay with us.
At the front of the race, Harold Robinson has hit the wet Miami streets hard, pressing the advantage he gained in the swim. Brooks Clark is right behind him. The strategy at this point is simple. Go as fast as you can, save nothing for the last event. The run will come when it comes, and if you've left your legs behind on the bike course, so be it. You can't win a short-distance triathlon by playing things safe. Back in the women's field, Eni Jones is still in first place, but not by much. Andre Cross from Granger, Indiana, is on her toes, a textbook example
and
of
they're all
drafting.
located on the West Coast. Today it's
As the 2 women are helped up the ramp and then run off toward their bikes, they have a healthy lead over the rest of the field. But the race is not here. Neither Jones nor Cross can be expected to finish in the money. Where the race is with Lisa Lighty, who comes out of the water in 4th place, within striking distance at least of the leaders. As Lighty runs toward the transition area, removing her wetsuit as she goes, doubts and fears nibble away at her concentration. Was her win over Kirsten Hansen last week just a fluke? No one has been asking that question more frequently than Lighty herself.
100, Eni Jones is the first.
Just what I'm telling you.
Jones fitters away the time she gained in the swim with a rookie mistake. She's forgotten where she's left her bike. As she searches frantically for the right rack, her teammate Cross struggles out of her wetsuit, clips on her helmet, and takes off, the leader for a moment.
Maddie is in the transition area. Lisa Lennon won the big triathlon last week.
As for Lighty, her good swim has not eased the pressure. The look on her face is anything but confident. She fumbles with her foot.
15 pounds for okay, went to the bike. Lots of women coming in now.
Then as she heads off, she almost falls. Last year was filled with such promise for Lighty, and it ended so quickly with a bike crash in training that nearly killed her. Now she's back, much better it seems than ever. But one race does not make a season or a reputation. In Miami, Lighty must face the pressure and make her comeback stick or watch it drift away in pieces. Beating Mike Pigg might be his long-held dream, but the reality, for the moment, is young Brooks Clark. Eager to trade his Rookie of the Year title in for something a bit more impressive, like Triathlete of the Year, Clark blasts in first place. He's one of a new breed in the sport.
Dave couldn't be with us today because of a pulled hamstring problem, but Joy is here. We're glad you're here as well.
And he acts not as a single sport specialist, but as a well-rounded triathlete. Robinson, who is having some trouble getting his legs moving in the early stages of the bike ride, can only follow and hope that he is not witnessing the arrival of the next Mike Pigg. Nor is Clark Robinson's only concern. The big guy in the red helmet is Rob Mackel from Bloomington, Indiana, the swimmer without the wetsuit, and obviously a cyclist with a pair of legs that won't quit. Last year, Mackel was frequently the first man out of the water and served as something of a designated rabbit for Mike Pigg, holding first place until Pigg's arrival and usually rapid departure. This time, though, Mackel comes from behind. He drives past Robinson, then outguns Clark, too, and suddenly it's a three-man race. The only problem is, right now it's a three-man race on the wrong side of Rickenbacker Causeway. The riders have followed the lead vehicle, which lost sight of their police escort, and followed the wrong route through the toll plaza at the base of the bridge. Later riders are on the left side of the causeway, where they belong, and the leaders will lose some time crossing over, but for the moment it's a moot point, since there is simply nowhere to go but straight ahead. With Brooks Clark in front again, Mackel back in second, Robinson nevertheless seems confident as he crosses over to the correct side of the bridge. He's gaining momentum and confidence. His cadence is beginning to smooth out a bit. But where's Pigg? Where's Pigg?
Triathlon Series on ESPN's Tropical Monday. Surfer Magazine, following the U.S. Triathlon Series on ESPN's Tropical Monday.
First turnaround on the bike course in sight, Robinson is beginning to gain back some of the ground he lost on Rob Mackel, and Mackel and Robinson both are gaining ground on Brooks Clark. There are actually two turnarounds on the Miami course, and it's at the first one, on Key Biscayne, where the complexion of the race changes. Robinson drives hard for the front. Tom Huggins moves strongly in the third, and
here in
Brooks
Miami,
Clark
as well
drops
as some
back.
great support.
The ultimate test of athletic endurance, pushing the human body beyond.
At the second turnaround, Virginia Key,
Over 500
Robinson has a
volunteers in action
6-second
here in
lead
Miami,
over Rob
as well
Mackel.
as some great
In the
support.
rain, he makes the turn carefully, and then heads back toward Miami. Mackel is having a good ride, and he's chasing Robinson hard. Huggins, unfortunately, is having some problems.
Hammer it, Mackel, I got a flag.
Robinson, a good runner, knows that Mackel is not a threat in the final event. And Pigg, if he were coming at all, would have been here by now. With every pedal stroke he takes, Harold Robinson's chances for the biggest win of his career loom larger. Meanwhile, in the women's race, Lisa Lighty has left her jitters in the transition area. She's out in front, gaining time on the rest of the field.
Early on, we talked about the difficult conditions, the weather, it's raining, the pavement has become slick. The oil rises to the surface of the asphalt and creates slick spots all over the course. The action continues from Miami, Florida. We'll be right back.
Might have been simply fun. The roads are slick, the bridges especially so. Each rider must answer the same question for him or herself. How fast is safe? seemed as if the weather knew when the bikes were on the course. The rain came harder and harder as the morning went on. The rain, though, was hardly something that Harold Robinson was concerned with, because his dream was coming true, his dream of beating Mike Pigg 1 mile at a time. He rides back into Bicentennial Park with a firm grip on first place. Yet to come are more than 6 miles of hard running. But for the first time all morning, Robinson allows himself to think that this indeed could be his day. If he was to falter, it would have been on the bike. The run is his best event. And he has at one time or another outrun everyone in this field. He has reason to be optimistic. 48 seconds behind the leader, Steve Fitch, a 25-year-old from Westchester, Pennsylvania, rolls into the transition area. A phenomenal ride over the second half of the bike course has put Fitch in contention. On his heels is his teammate, Brooks Clark. Both men sense the opportunity. Fitch has never placed in the top 3 in a Bud Light USTS event. If Robinson falls apart, one of them, maybe both, will be there to pick up the pieces. Grateful for the cool, wet weather, Robinson hammers on. Fitch and Clark follow hungrily. Finally, in 7th place, Mike Pigg joins the hunt, a minute and a half behind the leader. He hasn't had a flat tire or equipment problems. He just didn't ride very fast. A rare day indeed for the man who set the standard of triathlon excellence on the bike in 1987. While the men are beginning to think about the finish line, the women are still pedaling toward Bicentennial Park. Lighty is still in front. Jan Ripple, runner-up to Kirsten Hansen at the Bud Light USTS National Championships last year, is in 3rd place, and Paula Newby-Fraser, winner of the 1986 Ironman, is in 2nd. Lighty has ridden the women's field into the ground. As she racks her bike and changes shoes, she has a 3-minute advantage, a big margin in a race of this length. But running has never been Lighty's strong suit. With Ripple and Newby-Fraser behind her, and several other strong runners in the field as well, she can take nothing for granted.
All the way down and make a left.
Yet this is not the Lisa Lighty who disappeared abruptly from the triathlon scene in mid-season last year, struck down by a careless motorist. She held the number 5 spot on the Coke Grand Prix rankings at the time, but she was for the most part an unknown. A good swimmer who rode well on occasion but couldn't run. 10 pounds lighter this year, with a stride to match the best in the sport, she seems not only recovered, but reborn. Far ahead of Lisa Lighty, Harold Robinson is fighting his own battle, and he's winning. He's put time on Fitch, Clark, and Mike Pigg. Robinson is one of the most intellectually accomplished of the top pros. That's certainly been part of his problem. He spent most of the last 2 seasons juggling his studies for a master's degree in engineering at Cornell University and his triathlon training and racing. With his degree finally in hand, he'll believe he forged during the bike ride. He's added to it. He can look to his left and see Bicentennial Park. He can feel the pull of the finish line. He knows the race is his. Behind him, Steve Fitch, running hard, has held on to 2nd place. Fitch nibbled around the edges of the top 5 all last season. His performance here today signals his arrival as a contender. And Brooks Clark hangs grimly on to 3rd. With every stride he takes, the sport of triathlon moves with him toward the future. For Robinson, the hard training over the winter has paid off. Going into this season, he was something of an underground favorite. Word was circulating among his fellow pros that Harold Robinson was in terrific shape, that he was going to be a tough man to beat. Publicly, though, and in the triathlon press, he continued to labor as an also-ran. He had too often finished in second place or third to be taken as a serious threat. But with his convincing win here in Miami, leading a strong field from start to finish, he has stepped out from the shadows and into the sunlight of credibility. The days of could be but isn't are over for Harold Robinson. A surprising second place for Steve Fitch. And for Brooks Clark, last year's Rookie of the Year, there will be no sophomore jinx. A strong third place. Mike Pake, looking tired, finishes fourth, faced with the hard fact that he is, after all, human. Already it's been a long season. He's had 3 tough races in 4 weeks. Even pig power, it seems, has its limits. 4 miles into the run, Lisa Lighty splashes on. So far, she's held Newbie Fraser and Ripple at bay. But the complexion of an endurance event can change quickly, so Lighty must stay tightly focused on the task at hand. Still, as she runs, a corner of her mind must ponder the strange fate that put her here in Miami, running at the front of the pack. Last July, she was near the end of a long training ride when a small pickup truck pulled in front of her. There was no way she could avoid the impact. She was thrown at high speed over the truck and landed on her head. She suffered a fractured skull and a severe injury to her thigh that took a long and complicated operation to fix. It was Lighty's courage and determination and the devotion of her boyfriend, triathlete, that brought her back. When we return, a close-up look at a true-life triathlon run. Life in 1988 is not what it was for Lisa Lighty and her boyfriend, Todd Jacobs. Lighty's comeback story was dramatic enough, but with her win over Kirsten Hansen in Tampa Bay, she is suddenly an athlete to contend with, a face to be recognized.
We met at a master's swim team practice.
In Virginia.
And I was already swimming at the time, and the head coach was telling me about this great triathlete that was going to do the Ironman. And I was working out, and all of a sudden I saw Todd walk in, and he weighed a little bit less than he does now. He was real spindly. And I said, man, and he got in the water. He looked like a runner, a real good runner, when I saw him out of the water. And when I saw him jump in the pool and swimming, well, he wasn't really swimming. He looked like he was drowning.
I've always said that my poor swimming attracted her. I mean, it was a reclamation project. And she didn't know anything about running or cycling, but she had a strong desire to get involved in triathlons. So it came along very slowly. We'd run together, bike together. She'd help me with the swim. She'd come to a few races, and pretty soon, that's what we were doing all the time. Yeah. We were just training partners, and then we got to be good friends. And then not only did we train together, we go out to eat together, and pretty soon...
It was about 6 months or so.
Yeah. It was deceiving.
And while some of her newfound fame is fun and games, the element of tension is undeniable.
We're in the current Grand Prix rankings following the race, which will announce in President. If you finish in the top 5 overall.
He gave me all his effort and energy to get me back in shape, and he didn't really worry about himself too much, but worried about me. Every time I got on that bike, he never lost eye. He never lost eye on me. And if he would get ahead of me, he'd always stop and do a circle until I caught up to him. He really helped me along.
There is a certain element of selfishness that's required in the sport of triathlon to be your best, wherever your potential is. You have to have an element of selfishness and self-centeredness. I don't like that facet of the sport, but it is there, and I think it's required. And I don't want to succeed individually in this sport at the cost of our relationship.
Lisa and Todd's carefully planned trip to the hotel pool on race morning is short-circuited when they find themselves not only locked out of the pool, but into a stairway as well. They spend 35 minutes looking for a way out. Finally, a hotel security guard comes to the rescue. He tells them that they must go up to the 10th floor and then come back down to the pool. The morning is getting very long, and it hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, we know the hard way back.
Oh, no, it's not really hard. It's just that you only know a few ways, right? There you go. That's exactly what you got.
With the tension mounting as the minutes pass, the journey to the pool becomes an odyssey. Down the elevator, through the halls, then to Lisa's great relief, into the hotel lobby. The irrepressible Jacobs, with less on the line than his girlfriend, attempts to lighten the mood. He takes an impromptu dip in the lobby fountain. The pool at last. 3/4 of an hour after they started, Lisa and Todd can finally begin to prepare for the race. At this point, the pool is serving dual functions. The warm-up is critical, but at this stage, the mental release of simply having something to do is important as well.
I never get much sleep right before the race because I'm always worrying about it at night, and then I usually only get about 5 or 4 hours of sleep. And we get up and we warm up, usually in the hotel pool where we're staying. We usually do about, 500.
7 million laps.
No.
It's always a small pool.
We usually do about 500 to 1,000 yards. And then we always ride to the race site to get warmed up on the bike.
Lisa can take one big breath of relief at least. They're back on schedule. The morning still has its problems, though. First of all, the pump doesn't work. The rain isn't making her feel any better at all.
There has to be another pump around here.
Then she can't get the tools to fix her brakes to work. It's the little things that can kill you.
They will be introduced at 7:20 this morning at the start of the race start.
This sport is only going to last me, I don't know, maybe only a year or two. But he is going to be in my life, hopefully forever. And I want him to be in my life forever.
If she keeps going at this rate, triathlons will be in her life for a lot longer than a year or two. With Bicentennial Park in sight, Lisa Lighty has left the rest of the field in her wake. The race now is for second place. It's been a long road. The injury and the minor problems this morning, but there's no doubt that this woman is for real. Prophetically, perhaps, the sun has shone through for the first time all day for Lisa Lighty's finish. Certainly it is the dawn of her career. Behind Leidy, the race for second place is a tight one. For several miles, Jan Ripple and Paula Newby-Fraser ran shoulder to shoulder. Finally, it was Ripple who made the surge, and Newby-Fraser who dropped back. Jan Ripple from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Firm grip on second place. Jan Ripple is a rarity in the sport. She's a 32-year-old mother of 3, but she's tough. And right behind Ripple, in third place, Paula Newby-Fraser, the 1986 Bud Light Ironman champion. And right behind Newby-Fraser, in fourth place, Joy Hansen, perhaps the best pure runner in the field. The top finishers are across the line, but there are still almost 1,000 triathletes still to finish, still on the run course, fighting the Miami rain. In fact, the rain, which seemed so much of an obstacle earlier in the day, is now just part of the fun. What kid wouldn't love a chance to do this? Of course, nobody said that triathlons are supposed to be easy, and it's kind of fun to see how different triathletes take the water hazard that's been laid in front of them. Competitors come in all sizes and shapes, from a young-looking 15 to 70. They're all wet, though.
How's the race go for you today?
It's going great.
What's your name? Where are you from?
Brody and I'm from Miami.
Now, let's take a look at how they finished, Mike. In first place, Harold Robinson.
It was undeniably the biggest race of Harold Robinson's career.
In second place, newcomer Steve Fitch.
Steve, too. He's a new face and a new name. I think he'll be there again.
And in third place, Brooks Clark.
Just 21 years old, he's the future of the sport.
And in fourth place, everybody's favorite, Mike Pigg.
The defending national champion, he will be back, no doubt.
On to the women. In first place, Lisa Leidy.
If she can come through under the kind of pressure she had today, she can do anything.
Finishing second, Jan Ripple, mother of 3.
Yeah, mother of 3 and triathlete of great note.
In third place, Paula Newby-Fraser.
A long-distance specialist. She's getting faster and faster in the short ones.
And finishing fourth, Joy Hansen.
A comeback story of her own. We'll hear more about her.
With our winner, Harold Robinson. Harold, how big a win was this for you today?
Biggest yet, definitely. First USTS since 1976. So it was very nice to win at this point early in the season. You know, I've been working very hard this winter, and I think it's going to pay off the rest of the season. So let's hope it keeps going.
What part of the race worked best for you today?
Well, I think the swim started off really well. I came out of the water in first place and started off on the bike, and I really didn't know what to expect. I knew that everybody was very close. And next thing I knew, I was getting off the bike first. So
was the weather any factor for you today?
Well, I was very happy to have it kind of bad like this. When it's rainy and kind of cloudy, I always look forward to a race. You know, everybody else gets a little down, and I really like it. So.
Well, you beat a big field here today. Mike Pigg, last year's Miami champion, current Coke Grand Prix leader, and Coke Grand Prix champion from last year. Mike, how was your race today?
Oh, it went pretty good. You know, didn't win it today, so a little bit disappointed, but Harold won it, and I'm psyched for him.
I can remember at the finish line at Hilton Head Island last summer when you won the national championship, you stood at the finish line and you waited for one guy to cross that finish line. Who was that?
This guy. No, he didn't wait for me today, the bum. No.
We're not teammates anymore.
Yeah, Harold and I trained all last year together, so we got a kind of teammate thing, and we're going to be training again together this year. So we're good friends.
And what's in store for you? You going to come back?
Come back to where? I'm always going to come back.
All right.
At least it's kind of good in one way. It makes you hungry again and gets the fire in your eye. So I'll be fired up for Houston.
I'm with women's winner Lisa Leidy here. Lisa won a week ago in Tampa Bay, and a lot of people were wondering whether she could do it again. She obviously did. Lisa, what was the key out there today?
Pretty much the bike and the run. I got a good start on the bike. Right leaving this park, I passed Eni and Jan, and I was leading the whole way. Kept them in sight on the turnarounds, and they were right behind me, and I was just thinking about spinning. So when I got off the bike, I can run pretty well. And the first 4 miles of my run just felt absolutely great. And then near the end, my legs started cramping up a little bit, but I thought I could hold on to it.
I know that you had some doubts yourself coming into this race. You needed to win a second time to sort of prove to yourself that you could do it.
Prove to myself and everybody else that I could do it again, because I don't know how many people thought how well I could do in a race like this against so many great pro female triathletes. And I was real happy to place first last week in Tampa by 6.5 minutes. And coming into this race, my goal really was just to place in the top 3. But Todd Jacobs, my boyfriend, keeps on saying to me that you can win it, and he's right.
There was a big smile on your face when you crossed the finish line. How did it feel?
Absolutely great, just because it proved to me and everybody that I'm back into the sport again after this accident. That took a lot out of me and my family and Todd. And he helped me come back, especially in the bike.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that you're back stronger than ever. Congratulations on your win. Once again, women's winner Lisa Leidy, win number 2, 1988.